Okay, I'm here with Dale Jackson of Jackson Services. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Doing great.
Okay, so what is your formal title?
Formal title would be co-owner, along with Ben Jackson. Our fathers started the company back in 1973. It was, what was it called back then? Jackson Appliance Repair. They
Okay.
worked on appliances. They quickly transitioned from appliances to window units and refrigerators and TV antennas. Yeah,
TV antennas.
TV antennas. Yeah, it was way back in the day of TV antennas, and then they transitioned to refrigeration.
Okay.
So the difference between refrigeration and air conditioning is refrigeration typically cools machines or food.
Mm-hmm.
They realized real quickly, this is kind of a fun fact for
Okay.
Jackson Services, is that when a refrigeration unit goes down, no matter when it is, you have to get there right now.
Okay.
And because if you've got a restaurant full of food, you have to get that cooling again right now. It's not up for debate. Or if you have a dairy that is cooling tons and tons of milk, it has to stay cool. And so it's just fun. My dad, because at this point it was only my dad and my uncle basically running the company, and my mom actually. My mom was answering the phone and handling the books way back in the early 70s. And but my dad got tired of having to go out to dairies at 3 a.m. and he was like, man, there's got to be a better way. And so that's what we kind of began doing what's commonly referred to as heating and air.
Okay.
And because at least if a house the air conditioning unit quits heating or cooling, you at least got an hour or two before you have to get there. You can at least wait till the next morning, at 8 o'clock. But anyway, that's just a little fun fact. And so we've been doing heating and air primarily since, the very late 70s. And we, another fun fact is that we started out doing GE air conditioners. And the employees of Train, which is commonly referred to as Train, the brand, Train in the late 70s, their residential brand of Train, they weren't very good. But the employees, the actual assembly line workers of Train wanted to make a difference. They wanted to change their brand. And so they purchased the GE air conditioner, which was a very good air conditioner. And so still to this day, the employees of Train still own the residential company of Train air conditioners today. And that's what we were a GE dealer back in the late 70s, early 80s, and then 1984 is when the brand switched.
Got it.
And so we've been a Train dealer ever since the very first one rolled off the assembly line in 1984.
That's really cool.
And there are literally still a couple of GE air conditioners that we installed back in the late 70s that are still operating today. One of them is on the square in the old museum. Anyway, that's just a fun fact. But
Still operating today.
Yep.
They don't think it'd be more cost efficient to upgrade?
Absolutely it would. It's costing them hundreds of dollars a month, but I can't force them to replace it. But when we do replace it, we'll probably end up promoting it and making a big deal about it. So,
well done. And so what are your roles here at the Jackson Services?
So my roles here, I officially handle all of our sales. So Ben Jackson, my business partner, he basically handles operations and our service department. And then I handle all of our sales and anything that is involved in sales, the actual installation of whatever we sell, and also our marketing. So,
All right. You mentioned that there's another role you serve in the chamber.
That's a role that I serve in. Currently, I am chair-elect for the chamber. This past year, I don't know officially if I held a role or not, but I also am chairman of the transition committee.
Okay.
So our chamber at LaGrange is going through a little bit of a transition now with, I guess you could say it's my job to hire a new president of the chamber, a full-time position. Thankfully, we've had Kathy Tilley has served as our interim president of the chamber. Gosh, I guess now it's been about 5 or 6 months now, and she's done an excellent job. She will not be our permanent president moving forward.
Okay.
So now we've got to kind of ramp things back up, and hopefully within the next month or two, we hope to place a new permanent president of the chamber. So, but I am officially now chair-elect. So I guess next year I'll be chairman of the board of the chamber. That's cool. one of the many boards that I do serve on.
And what does the chairman of the board do? What is the responsibilities of that role?
Well, traditionally, officially not too much. Obviously, though, in a year like we just went through in 2019, it gets a little bit more complicated when you have to replace your president. And so obviously, but Marlene Rhodes was our chairman of the board this past year. And she did a very fine job in kind of navigating the waters there through that transition. George Bailey is our current chairman of the board.
Okay.
This year. So hopefully this 2020 will be a lot less
Hectic,
yes. Hopefully. So.
Okay. So would you say you're most known LaGrange for this role? As like Jackson Services?
Yeah, I think, I guess, I'm very blessed here in our company, because of the foundation that my dad and uncle laid here and the company that we have here. It also gives me the ability because of my staff and the foundation here at the company, it's given me the ability to get outside of the company.
Okay.
And be involved at the chamber, be involved in the Boys and Girls Club, and a lot of what my passions are as far as serving the community. And I get that ability to do that, because my team here at the company, they're taking care of things behind the scenes, and which gives me the ability to kind of get out there and impact the community in more ways, and be a part of other organizations and to help the community at large.
Mm-hmm. Would you care to share some of the ways you help the community at large?
So, I mean, as far as the additional ways in which, and the organizations, so I serve on, apparently I just found out I'm the chair-elect of the Boys and Girls Club. Okay. So next year, I'll be the chairman of the board there. And the Boys and Girls Club is it's an organization that I became aware of a few years back after I joined Kiwanis, which Kiwanis, I'm actually the president of Kiwanis this year, and I kind of head up a program called Terrific Kids. Okay. And Terrific Kids is it's a program to where we go to a couple of different elementary schools and the Boys and Girls Club, and we really focus in on second graders, and we reward them and kind of just acknowledge their abilities in reading and setting goals and reaching those goals. Okay. And when I first got involved, it was, I was just learning even what Kiwanis was, and then now all of a sudden I'm learning what the Boys and Girls Club is. And so through the Terrific Kids program, Kiwanis used to give out little prizes. And these were legitimately 10-cent trinkets, like a pencil or a little tag that you put on your zipper so you can zip up your jacket or something. And And I was like, you know, are these really motivating the kids to excel in their reading abilities and reaching their goals? I didn't think so.
You'd be surprised though.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are second graders. I mean, you know, but anyway, so I said, well, you know, why don't my company, you know, sponsor this program?
That's really cool.
And I'll buy the prizes, you know, because our Kiwanis Club, you know, they were responsible for buying the prizes. And so they, you know.
I gotcha.
And plus, you know, I felt like that the way in which the whole program was set up, you know, I don't want to get down into the weeds on it, but, you know, you go into, we were going at that time, we were going to Whitesville Road and to Ethel Kite. And of course now Whitesville Road, now we started doing Clearview Elementary.
Okay.
And so anyway, so I kind of started working with the teachers, and I said, let's set the goals a little bit higher, you know, instead of giving out a prize to every single second grader, you know, let's try to, you know, give them a goal to reach. And so now our company, you know, we supply, you know, like for instance, typically we give out, you know, lunch boxes and book bags, and
that's awesome.
And of course the kids really like the little fidget spinners and sunglasses, and you know,
that's fantastic.
But through that program, I learned about the Boys and Girls Club, because we also go there and kind of provide the same services to the second graders there. So anyway, through that program, I've really just been exposed, I guess maybe is a good word, to the Boys and Girls Club and how they serve our community. And so it's just really become a real passion of mine. And through the Kiwanis and Terrific Kids program, one of the things that I have, when I first started it, you know, part of what we did was every kid that got recognized for meeting their goal, you know, we would have members of Kiwanis, and typically your average civic club member is, you know, an older man, you know, and these are typically, you know, second graders in the public school system, and they don't interact with your typical 50, 60, 70-year-old businessman, you know, but, you know, they would come up and they would all shake our hand, you know, and obviously, you know, your typical second grader, you know, real shy, and, you know, and, but part of what I'm trying to instill in them and kind of communicate with them, and I go over every single month when we show up in these schools or the Boys and Girls Club, and we talk about it. What does it mean to shake someone's hand? And I think that it is something that they're not exposed to on a regular basis, is the idea and really understanding. And even as a culture, we've lost that a lot. But when you shake someone's hand and you look them in the eye, and what does that mean? What does it mean, and how important is that first introduction to someone? And so every single month I talk to them about what does it mean to look someone in the eye, and I make them repeat it back to me. And what that means is when you look someone in the eye, it shows respect to that individual, but it also, and probably more importantly, it shows that individual that you respect yourself, that you are looking them in the eye. You're not ashamed, and you're proud of yourself. And so that's what I'm trying to instill in them, is a sense of pride and self-respect. And so I make them, as all 70 kids, you know, are lining up to shake these 8 old white guys' hands, you know, they have to, they can't go down the line until they look each one of us in the eye, you know, and so that's a small thing, but I think through the course of the year, they begin to get it.
It'll have a lasting impact.
Yeah, I hope so. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
I used to work in a Boys and Girls Club, actually.
Oh, really?
I spent 3 or 4 years working as an assistant youth director at a Boys and Girls Club in upstate New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
But okay, you mentioned there was a handful. Are those the only 2? Not only 2, but are there others?
No, I mean, yes, there are plenty of others. I lose track. So if we'll go down the list. So I serve on the board of the LaGrange County Chamber of Commerce, the Harris County Chamber of Commerce, the Lafayette Christian Discovery Cottage Foundation, which is the foundation for the school that we started for my son at Lafayette Christian.
Okay.
I serve on the board of Community and Schools, Boys and Girls Club, Kiwanis, I'm the president of Kiwanis, and on the executive committee. I started SAFE, which is it will become more known in the next few years as we roll out the medical cannabis industry here in Georgia.
Okay.
SAFE is a nonprofit foundation that will certify the future companies that operate here in the state of Georgia as far as being SAFE certified.
Okay.
And taking proper care of patients, but also providing safe products for individuals who need medical cannabis.
Are we close to having medical cannabis here in Georgia?
Yes, we're the state of Georgia. Last year in 2019, we officially passed our legislation that will provide for actual medical cannabis oil.
Okay.
And so, unfortunately, the leadership in Georgia took a very long time to actually get the ball rolling as far as the law that we passed this time last year. Basically said to establish a panel of 7 individuals appointed by the governor, lieutenant governor, and the speaker of the house to actually map out what does that look like? What does medical cannabis oil look like in Georgia? How is it produced? Who gets the licenses? Anyway, so they've only been appointed now for about 3 months. They've held 2 public meetings. One in December. One was just last week. This past Saturday in Columbus, and the next one is up in Austell, Georgia. And I'll be speaking at that one. But we're probably about 9 to 12 months out from licenses actually being handed out. There'll be 6 licenses across the state, and then it'll be up to those companies to grow the plants and get the oil out to patients. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Cool.
So
you have a son with an autism spectrum disorder, right? Correct.
Correct.
Would you care to discuss that?
Autistic.
Would you care to discuss that a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. Would the cannabis be for him?
Yes.
Okay. Would you care to go into that a little bit? How that would affect him? How that would help him? Or like?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's an hour-long discussion to go through everything and how we got here.
Yeah.
Cannabis related and Collin related. But in short, Collin is currently 11 years old. He is severely autistic. He would be considered on the low functioning autistic, meaning there are some, and there again, it's the reason why we call autism the spectrum is because there's a wide range, and education about autism is greatly lacking. Probably, ironically, one of my biggest frustrations in life is the movie Rain Man. Because what you saw there in the movie Rain Man, obviously an autistic gentleman, very high functioning, and so people, our culture thinks all autistic individuals are Rain Man. So he has some supernatural powers, and my son doesn't. My son doesn't talk at all. He can't tie his shoes, and he's not potty trained, and he struggles feeding himself. And but as a autistic dad, sometimes you get tired of people asking you, what's your son's superpower? Because they, in their mind, and
they don't mean anything bad by it.
no, and that's my point, is that I have had to come to grips with, and I don't know if I've technically created this word or not, but society, so many in society are innocently ignorant of autism, and then also of what is cannabis, what is medical cannabis.
Yeah.
Because so much of my time for the last 5 years has been going out and educating people who are innocently ignorant of what medical cannabis oil is. Whether they be state legislators at the Capitol, or the countless talks that I've given across the state at different conferences, or at your typical Rotary or Kiwanis Club in South Georgia. So we're through the kind of what we've dealt with through Collin. And really because of, and I didn't even mean to get here with cannabis. I mean, I didn't set out, I never, growing up, I've never smoked weed. I never physically, I saw weed one time.
Okay.
In high school. And so, that's wasn't who I was. I wasn't, I'm not this typical, hippie that.
Yeah, you're not a stoner.
I'm definitely not a stoner, and I wasn't even like one of these all natural people, that had, that knew it was a medicine for decades. I don't know how far they go back, but anyway, I've just kind of gotten thrown into it.
Yeah, you're an autism dad.
Yeah. Well, it actually, and we'll probably circle back around how I actually got in, I had a friend who had a daughter that had severe seizures. And but because of, and a lot of people don't know kind of where my political background comes from.
Okay.
One, as a kid, I was always just aware of politics. I remember my very first presidential election, that I was aware of, conscious of, so to speak. It was, I guess I was 12, 1992.
Okay.
I think that was when George Bush Sr. First got elected.
Yep.
And then I remember my granddad taking me to hear candidate Pat Buchanan spoke at Live Oak, the Milliken plant.
Okay. Yeah.
That it had burned down. I think that was like in 94, 95. And then Pat Buchanan came and spoke. You did a little rally. And it was during, I want to say, the 96.
Okay.
It could have been, no, I think it could have been during the 92. I'm not sure. Anyway, I was really young. I was like 12, 13, 14, I was a kid. Anyway. So I've always been aware of politics. And, but when Collin was born, and as I began to kind of feel firsthand or experience firsthand what it's like to be a special needs dad, and really what that means, not only do you as a parent, there are things that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether that be services for your child and learning the whole government world, what that looks like, and navigating those waters, and dealing with the school system, and making sure your child has the proper therapies and that you're advocating on their behalf sufficiently. But there's a whole other half of that equation, And that is, what about after you're gone?
Mm-hmm.
As so much in life, and so much as what we think about in life, you want to, as a kid, you want to grow up and become an adult. You want to get married. You want to be an adult and have your own family and have your kids. And then
mm-hmm.
you want to grow old and have grandkids and enjoy your grandkids. And then, ultimately as parents and as we want to see our kids
mm-hmm.
grow up and be successful adults and have their own families. And that's our legacy. That's what we leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
But as a special needs dad, you have to plan for and think about taking care of your child for the 30, 40 years after you're gone. And so not only are there a lot of physical things you have to plan for and financial things you have to plan for, but in my mind, what world am I leaving behind that he's going to have to live in, unprotected by me? So you think about, okay, well, what's society going to be like
mm-hmm.
after I'm gone? And so that kind of led me to, well, politically speaking, you had set policies and
mm-hmm.
you want to, and it really hit me hard shortly after we learned of the struggles that Collin faced as a child, as I was watching a documentary on World War II and the atrocities of Hitler in Germany. But I learned something that I was unaware of, because when you hear about World War II, as a matter of fact, we just I think last week or this week maybe was the National Holocaust
mm-hmm.
Survivor Day,
yeah. mm-hmm.
and that's horrific to think about that, and to think about the millions of people that were slaughtered. But many people don't know the very first people to suffer at the hands of Hitler.
Yeah, when he got rid of all the invalids and the people incapable, handicapped people. Yeah,
absolutely. And when I learned that of how, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially I can't even imagine how difficult it would be to have a special needs child back in the 30s and 40s, and just the limited amount of services available, and it was tough. And so I get it when I learned that Hitler and the German government, came to these families and said, listen, I know it's tough for you taking care of your child. Let us take care of it. Because one thing, they also had universal health care.
Mm-hmm.
So the government was responsible for whatever services they did provide to these individuals. The German government was responsible for it. And so that's why they said, well, just let us take care of it. It's tough on you. We understand as a parent it's tough. Let us take care of it. And then within 6 months, every single one had tragically died of an accident. Learning of that changed my life, because I thought, what are the chances of our government one day becoming that?
Mm-hmm.
And what if it happens after I'm gone and I can't protect my son? And so that's when I became more active and got involved in the Republican Party, and I was the 3rd district chairman of the Republican Party. Gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago now. Not anymore. But because of my involvement in the Republican Party, I had a great chance to meet a lot of the state legislators and kind of learn about. So many people don't even know about our state government. It's because most people just watch Fox News or CNN, and so they know that we have a president, they know we have a senator, maybe if they can understand the difference between 2 senators and 14 congressmen. But then we have congressional districts here in the state, and our whole political process. Partly it irritates me, but partly it's just fascinating to understand the two-party system. And even though I'm not really a big fan of the two-party system, but I'm a free market guy, so I think we should let anybody.
Okay.
Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But anyway, I'm trying not to get distracted. But so through my involvement in the political process of learning our state legislators and our U.S. reps and anyway, so now I'm circling all the way back to cannabis because of understanding and knowing our state legislators. When my friend his daughter was battling some really serious stuff, and they were facing brain surgery because her seizures were getting worse and worse and worse, and so the procedure that they had scheduled was they were going to go in and cut out a piece of her skull and insert the sensor so that they could evaluate and run tests over the next couple of months and really pinpoint exactly where her seizures were coming from, and then they would come back in and then remove a portion of her brain. And then he was just going down kind of the steps of best case scenario. She's going to have to learn how to walk and talk again. And they hoped that would be possible. But nothing's certain when you go in and start removing a piece of the brain. And I told him, I said, look, I don't know anything about cannabis and weed, but there's something going on at the Capitol, and there's some people up there that want us to be able to, have medical cannabis here in Georgia. This was back in 2014. And I said, you may want to look into it. And I said, I can help put you in contact with some people at the Capitol. And needless to say, within a week, he started learning about it and had moved his family, his wife and daughters, out to Colorado. And she was experiencing her first week of being seizure free in a very long time. And then at that point, I was still just kind of helping them and their family and just helping kind of push the legislation along and help kind of point them in the right direction of who to talk to. But the more that I learned kind of through them and just trying to help them, as I learned of the possibilities that this may also help with autism. And that's really when, up to that point, I was kind of trying to stay hands off, just kind of point him in the right direction. But then once I learned that there could possibly be ways that could help Collin, that's when I kind of jumped headfirst into it and became much more involved, and now I'm extremely involved. And we actually developed 3 different formulas of oil specifically for treating autism. And varying degrees of autism. Even though Collin is very, what we would call low functioning and very severe autistically, thankfully, to date, he doesn't demonstrate any of the what we call the severe behavioral
Okay.
issues.
So no violence. Yeah.
Correct. No what we call self-injurious behaviors.
Okay.
And however, part of what my passion behind cannabis is that I've been very vocal and very social media active, and I feel like to some degree that's helped me kind of communicate and get the word out there about what autism is. However, you could call it a blessing or a curse, I'm not sure, but I've gotten to know autistic families all across the world. And I've seen firsthand those children that demonstrate those very severe behavioral issues. And it's really in self-defense for themselves. I mean, we don't know what it's like to experience whatever is going on in their brain.
Yeah.
That would make the idea of ramming your head into a brick wall a good idea. And unfortunately, it's very common in boys, more so.
Okay.
And typically, it is brought on with puberty. And so I guess my point is that it's not something that, well, it's either there or it isn't from the beginning. It happens.
Yeah, it happens slowly, and it's onset with puberty, and you're
Right.
still looking down the barrel of a gun.
Right. And so I guess a lot of what I have done to date with Collin is really in preparation for if that day ever comes. And I have seen cannabis oil be extremely effective for those families.
Okay.
So anyway, and with no side effect, no negative side effect, and that's so much of what kind of has changed my trajectory. And I didn't see it then when it was happening. I was horrified when I experienced it the first time, but when me and my wife were meeting with the neurologist, see, Collin, when he was born, he was having seizures virtually 24/7.
Okay.
But there was no physical manifestation of that. It was an all-encompassing, what they call generalized seizures that encompass the whole brain, and it just really stunted his development. And we didn't even know it. We kept taking him to the doctor, and the doctor kept telling us, this pediatrician kept telling us, well, boys develop later than girls. I mean, because he was just a little baby, so it wasn't like we could complain about him not talking yet.
Yeah.
At 6 months old.
Yeah.
But he wasn't, sitting up on schedule. He wasn't rolling over on schedule, but he was still appeared to be a normal functioning child. And finally, when he was like 10, 11 months old, that's when we just basically demanded that something's not right, and we want to take him to a neurologist, and that's when we discovered he was having seizures. And but that day in Macon, talking to the neurologist and having him explain to us, at this point we knew nothing of autism. We just were only focused on the seizures.
Yeah.
And the doctor was explaining to us how, best case scenario, they hoped to find a medication that would stop the seizures. But if they did, there were definite side effects. And these were severe side effects. And we dealt with them for years of mood swings and no appetite. And we didn't know this at the time, but with just autism in general, that's it's a complication with what they'll eat, what they want to eat, what they can't eat, and with the sensory, the textures of the food, and so forth and so on. But anyway, so he said, but if we can find a medication that has hopefully not horrible side effects that will stop or reduce the seizures, we'll only be able to keep him on those medications for a few years, because those medications this was not up for debate. This was medical fact. I'm going to circle back around on why that really irritates me so bad, but it's medical fact that more than likely that medication is going to start destroying one of his his organs. And so that we're going to have to switch his seizure medication at some point to a different medication that will destroy a different organ in his body. And so if the first one destroys his kidneys, then we'll switch it to one that will destroy his liver and allow his kidneys to repair themselves. And then years after that, we can switch it back to one that'll start destroying his kidneys again after his liver repairs. That's the world we live in. That's best case scenario. Okay? So fast forward years, and now I'm at the Capitol lobbying for cannabis, and I'm having to argue against someone who the best thing they can come up with is that they think that cannabis might reduce the IQ of someone by 10 points. There was no other negative side effect. And so my response to that is, my child can't tie their own shoe. I'm not worried about 10 IQ points. I'm worried about their kidney and their liver. Because still to this day, after thousands of years of history with cannabis, say about it what you want, but there is no physical, medical, negative side effect. It has been proven to be effective in seizures and autism and countless other things. And I tell this story a lot because of all the families that we were helping with oil, and she had an autistic child, and it was either spring break or the first week, after school was out for the summer. Long story short, the son, the child, went to stay with his dad for a week, on vacation, and the dad was out in California, and so anyway, she sent the oil with the child, and in typical husband, or I guess in this case ex-husband, or male, whatever, wasn't paying attention. So the mom says, give him 0.3 milliliters. Okay. In the morning, and 0.3 milliliters in the afternoon. So what does the dad do? Well, 3 milliliters.
3 milliliters.
Okay. Yeah. 10 times. So then he, shortly after he's like, sir, I don't know what led him to realize that. Maybe the mom called and just checking up, and anyway, so she's freaking out, calling me, and what do I do? What do I do? The dingleberry gave him, 10 times the amount that he was supposed to. And I was like, well, calm down. And when he wakes up from his nap, because he's about to take a nap, he's probably going to be hungry. And give him something to eat. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. He took a nap. And he woke up and he was hungry. And he had a sandwich. But can you imagine, So that's the world I experience, but yet I'm having to go to the Capitol and argue about people that they would have my child taking all of these extremely powerful drugs that are going to do nothing but numb him and turn him into a zombie and kill his organs at the same time. And I have to actually argue with these people that to make this all natural cannabis medicine legal for my child, that worst case scenario, if we happen to screw up and give him 10 times the amount we're supposed to, he's just going to take a nap, which in the autism world is a great thing. Because I went literally 5 years without seeing my child sleep. Your typical parent doesn't even think about that. They get frustrated when their child wakes up at 7:30 on a Saturday morning. Well, try when your child only sleeps 2 or 3 hours every single night. And when they wake up, you can't explain to him that it's 3 a.m, you need to go back to bed. He doesn't understand that. And on a good day, when he's happy, he's extremely loud. He's not saying a word, but he's loud. And that's a good day. So what do you do? What do you do with a 4-year-old at 2:30 a.m, and you got a wife in the bed, you've got 2 other children, or this time at least 1 other, 6-year-old daughter. So that's why I spent hours just driving. I just get him, put him in the truck, and we'd go watch. He'd watch movies, and I'd drive for hours, or go sit in the parking deck. And I joke. I tell people that this isn't a joke. This is reality, and I don't even know why it's reality. But I literally listened to the movie Cars probably 300 times before I ever actually got to watch it. I had it memorized, never seen it. Because it was going on right behind my head.
I gotcha.
But he loved riding, driving, and he loves Disney movies. Disney has some hocus pocus or something on their movies, because I swear it happened just this morning. He was upset at 5 and but anyway, he just loves Disney movies. But from the time he was maybe 12 to 18 months, and this was as we're learning about his seizures, and then we quickly, I think his seizures kind of evolved into his autism and his behavioral, or just his, anyway. But he just, he didn't sleep from probably 2 until we started treating him at the age of 7. So there were...
On the medication thing, if I can interject, I have a seizure disorder because of the brain tumor, and I take medication out the wazoo for it. I'm on 2 different seizure meds every day, and it's killing my insides. So yes, I
had a feeling that you probably understood what I was saying.
Yes, I had 6 months of intractable seizures because of the brain tumor we didn't know about, and they cut a big chunk of my brain out, so I have seizures now. And it was a good 2 years without driving after the seizure, after the tumor resection, and the craniotomy, because of the big chunk of my brain they removed here. I couldn't walk or talk after the tumor removal either. So yes, I understand completely. Well, not understand completely, but I have a good understanding of what you're talking about with the seizures and the killing of the internal organs.
And you're able to communicate what you're experiencing.
Yes, exactly. And I can't imagine if I wasn't.
Yeah. Which obviously makes it more complicated treating someone who, can't communicate. So yeah, from the age of 2 to 7, I specifically remember the 2 times that I physically saw Collin sleep. Because in order for him to sleep, like under normal circumstances at night, we had to go in and tape the little light on his smoke detector and his little baby monitor light. We had to tape over it and, cover up those windows. It had to be pitch dark. And even then it was, we would put him to bed every night at, say 8 o'clock. Well, he would lay in his bed just rolling and rocking and, banging the wall and, or get out of bed and be tapping his head. Like, he's never physically like banged his head like against the wall or anything, but he likes to rock.
Okay.
And so he likes the rhythm. And a lot of times what happens is that rocking, like he'll just be tapping his head against the wall or the door. So there were just early on, there were hours and hours every night of having to hear him tap, 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 from 8 o'clock to 11:30 at night. And then eventually he would just pass out from exhaustion and then hopefully sleep until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then wake back up and start, hitting the wall. Or a lot of times, and that was the way he was communicating, is he would start to bang the wall, but it was really, he wasn't angry. He was just letting us know, hey, I'm awake. Come open the door and let me out of this room. But it's still, I couldn't see him sleep, because if I walked in there, he would instantly wake up and then be up the rest of the night. But there were 2 times that, because of everything we dealt with Collin, when we would go on vacation, every year we go to vacation. We go to Pigeon Forge every summer, and every winter we go to, it's called Lake Junaluska up in North Carolina.
Okay.
It's actually a Methodist community around this really big lake. Anyway, my mom and her whole family, they're big Methodists from North Georgia. So anyway, we go up there in the wintertime to kind of like a family reunion for my mom's family, because they're all from North Georgia. And, but me and my wife, Sarah, we would take separate vehicles, because we just never knew what may or may not happen, and I may have to come home.
I got you.
If we took Collin, and so, and it always happened. Well, he would always typically wake up, really early, especially in vacation in a weird place, and so I would have to, I didn't want to wake up the other 25 family members, in the house, so I would take him riding. And generally speaking, whenever that would happen on the last day of vacation, I'd be like, look, I'm just heading home. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm heading to Georgia, and so, but for whatever reason, but it happened twice. Coming through Atlanta, of course, I'm leaving North Carolina or Pigeon Forge to, 2:30 in the morning, and so, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I remember looking in my mirror and seeing he just passed out from exhaustion. He was sleeping, but I got to see him sleep. I got to see my child at peace. And as a parent, you don't think about that a lot of times. You don't think about things to be grateful for. But be able to see your child sleep, anyway, so that's one of the things that has really touched me when we started treating him with cannabis oil. The first time I came home from work and I saw him as a typical 7, 8, 9-year-old little boy who had a hard day working, playing at school, was tired. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he was just taking a nap on the couch. I got to see, just watching. It was amazing how his body started to grow. He still is tiny for an 11-year-old boy, but before we started treating him with cannabis oil, I mean, he was tiny because his body he was exhausted.
They can't rest and can't grow if you can't rest.
Yeah. I mean, his body was constantly in motion. And he was only sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night. You know, and anyway, and now, you know, it's not perfect. He still can't communicate with us at all, verbally. Some things, I mean, he's beginning to understand things that we say.
Okay.
But, you know, it's not like I can tell him, hey, Collin, it's time to go to bed, and him just walk up, you know, go to bed. But, you know, just the other day, I told him, you know, he was across the room and we were getting ready for church, and I told him, I said, come over, it's time to put on your shoes, you know, come over here. And actually I told him to sit. We have a little coffee table, and he's tall enough where he can sit down at the coffee table and let me put on his shoes.
Okay.
Well, he walked over to me and he just sat down on the floor. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, you got the point.
Yeah.
Hey, you come over here and sit down wherever, you know, it's time to put on your shoes. And so that was encouraging. But, you know, but now, you know, we still put him to bed every night at 8:30, and now he goes to bed. And he'll typically sleep every night. You know, I guess now what I would describe as a rough night is, you know, he may wake up at 5:30. You know, and so instead of him waking up you got to wake up at 7 every morning. And, you know, I take him to school every morning and get him dressed. And typically I'm up anyway at 5:30. You know, and so that's really nowadays that's the typical worst case scenario. You know, is his body is able to calm enough for him to sleep. You know what I mean? So
that sounds like a miracle.
It's changed our lives, you know, for the better. So anyway.
Well, that sounds like a good place to end the interview.
What's your time looking like?
We still got a lot, but it's a good place to end the interview. All right, Dale. It's been a pleasure. How can our listeners connect with you?
Oh well, I mean, I'm here at the office, and I'm on social media, and I would encourage them, if I could leave with anything, I would say to one of the biggest ways that everything that has transpired over the last, I'm just turned 40, but try to understand that you don't understand certain things. You know, you mentioned earlier that you deal with a seizure disorder. However, you don't know what it's like to have a child with autism.
Correct.
And understand that. Understand that you don't understand. And if I could ask society to do one thing, and that is to try to have more empathy and try to see things from others' point of view. And that's one of the biggest things, because of the very blessed life I had as a child and as a young adult. I took so much for granted, and I was so quick to really judge other people's behavior and their circumstances. And having a child with autism, has taught me that there's a lot in this life.
And real quick, what's the phone number for Jackson Services? Just so we can pitch them.
Gosh, if I can even remember. I don't call it that often. 706-884-3351. And we have a brand new website, jacksonservicesco.com.
jacksonservicesco.com. All right. That's been it. That'll be a wrap. Thank you.